Hi, I'm Tony Dungy, and welcome to the Football Night in America podcast. I'm here with Rodney Harrison. And Rodney, we're missing our quarterback today. Jack Collinsworth can't be with us, so we're just going to have a little fun here kicking it.
Absolutely. I'm excited about talking about the new release of the 2024 football schedule. We got some exciting games, Coach.
We really do. This is always a fun time of the year. I've been waiting for that release. I was waiting for Wednesday. It seemed like forever. And we have a great schedule. I'm fired up about it, but I need to ask you, Rodney, what is the one game on our schedule that you can't wait to see?
Well, it has to be, I think it has to start in week one. It's the Rams versus the Lions. And when you look at the Rams and what they've been able to do this offseason, they really put a focus and emphasis on the defensive side of the ball. Aaron Donald, he retired. You still have Kobe Turner, who was outstanding last year. He had 9 sacks. They drafted Braden Fisk. They went out and drafted Jared Verse. They went out and got a big run stopper in Tyler Davis. I mean, I just thought I love the way they really put attention on the defensive side of the ball where they were really weak at, Coach.
And, we were there when Detroit knocked the Rams out of the playoffs last year. And so when that happens to you, you always have that sense that I want to get back at that team. I'd love to play them week one. And that's the way it's set up.
Absolutely. And you get to a point, too, where you start to look and say, you know what? We can beat this team. We can beat this team. And, you add a couple pieces on the defensive side of the ball. Like I said, emphasis on the defensive line, especially when Aaron Donald retired.
Well, speaking of you saying we can beat this team, we can beat this team, I was looking at opening night, Kansas City and Baltimore. And Baltimore has had their hands full with the Chiefs for a couple of years now in the playoffs. And they've got to say, this is a target game for us. And you know what it reminds me of? When we used to go against you guys, and I was with Indianapolis, you were with New England, you were beating us in the playoffs. And now we got to go up there and somehow we got to win this game so we can get the game at home. If we lose opening night, we're going to be chasing you guys all year. And that's how Baltimore has to approach this game, I think.
Absolutely. And for me, all eyes will be on offensive coordinator Todd Monken. I know that Lamar was the MVP and he wanted in the playoffs to have the emphasis and focus on Lamar. But at the end of the day, you brought in Derrick Henry for a reason. He's going to be your main cow. You got to run this guy. You didn't do it in the playoff. He didn't run the football in the playoffs. You go out and you get Derrick Henry, and maybe he's the missing piece. I believe he's the missing piece to their offense that gets them over the hump. And of course, they have to do a couple things with that offensive line.
Yeah, you're right. Control the line of scrimmage, control the time of possession, keep the ball away from Mahomes, and play Ravens football. Don't get into a throwing, scoring up and down with the Chiefs. They're going to have some new receivers, and they're going to have some things they've got to work with. And you got to pound that ball at Kansas City, and I'm sure that's what Baltimore is going to be thinking.
And, Coach, I got to give props to the Chiefs because I know for the last 2 or 3 years, you've been kind of questioning how good their defense is and kind of been up and down. And I think that's been one of the mainstays, one of the most impressive things about the Chiefs is how well their defense has played. And even at times when they kind of get relaxed and they get a little lazy, they still come back and they know how to turn it off and turn it on. And that's due to their defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, who I think is probably the best in the NFL.
So underrated, and he did it in the playoffs for them when they had to go on the road and win those tight, low-scoring games when the offense wasn't putting up 30 points. They did it, and you got to give him credit. I agree. Well, Rodney, there's one more game I've got my eye on in this our schedule, and that is Week 13, San Francisco at Buffalo. Because to me, this is going to be two really, really good teams that we think are going to be there at the end, playing each other. It's not the AFC versus AFC. I mean, it's the same thing we saw last year. San Francisco was kind of dominating things, and then Baltimore went in there and took it to them. And we said, whoa. Well, I think San Francisco is going to have a chance to make a statement going into Buffalo late in the year with two teams that really have a lot riding on it.
Yeah, I got a chance to see Kyle Shanahan down at the roast and just talk to him. And, I really feel bad for him because he's a really outstanding young coach. And it just seems like time and time they get so close and they just keep coming up short. But I believe that, Kyle, this could be potentially the year. I think Brock Purdy, another year in the system, add some pieces on the defensive side of the ball. You get some guys healthy in the secondary. I think this could potentially be the year that they take it to that next level. One game that really intrigues me is the game the following week, week 14. I think it said Kansas City versus the Chargers. And this is why I wanted Coach Harbaugh so bad for the Chargers. I think he's going to push Justin Herbert. I think he's going to elevate him and challenge him and take him to the next level. But I also think he's going to get that physicality back into the Chargers. The Chargers, they couldn't win and go far in the playoffs because they were a soft, mentally soft team. With Harbaugh in there, they're going to have two of the best offensive tackles in all of football. They're going to run the football down your throat, and they got some big play receivers. Ladd McConkey, he's going to be a good player for them in the slot.
I was going to ask you, do you think Coach Harbaugh was making a statement when he picked Joe Alt with his first pick, an offensive tackle, and saying, you know what, this is what we're going to be all about?
Absolutely, Coach. And what made you guys at Indianapolis so tough was the fact that if we kept two safeties deep, you could run the ball. You had the ability with the Hall of Famer to run the ball and an outstanding offensive line you had. If I came up in the box, now you have the ability to pass. It just, when you're able to run and pass and do things like that, you got a smart quarterback that can read all those things. And that's the thing about you guys' team. You guys' teams were so smart, and you did a great job of communicating.
Well, I thank you for that. And I do think Coach Harbaugh is trying to get that same philosophy. And yes, we've got Justin Herbert. Yes, we're talented. We can throw the football. But you know what? If we're going to win, we're going to have times when we have to run the football. We have to be able to run it. And we got to be tougher than you are. And he is going to get that across to the team, no doubt in my mind. Well, I've got to ask you the most important question about the schedule, though. This is the number one question. When do you think the first time we're going to have to put on a big coat at the game?
Okay, so I'm going to go with I would say week 11, Coach, with the Jets. I think we're going to be fine. Pittsburgh is week 7. I'll say week 11. Week 11. That's when we have to start getting prepared. A couple months into the season.
You said week 11. I'm thinking you're a lot tougher than I am. Week 9 in November in Philadelphia. I'll have a coat out. I don't know if you will. I will definitely have a coat on.
Well, I think Jacksonville is probably a little bit more concerned about the weather than we are. Okay.
I used to not worry about it all that much, but that Kansas City Miami game last year in Kansas City, that I still have memories of us being out there in the fourth quarter.
But you know what, Coach? It was fun, and we had a chance to see up close and personal how the weather truly affects teams in different capacities.
Yeah, and it did. We were out there, and all the Miami guys were running by us in pregame, no sleeves on. Oh, we're tough. It doesn't matter. And they went out there, and they couldn't make a tackle.
But I gotta go back to this. Our opening game, okay, not in the United States, but in Brazil, the Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. How excited are you, Coach, to go back to Brazil? I know you went there for the Olympics. And what are you looking for most in the game?
That is going to be fun. It's a great spot, and I'm excited about that. But I'm really fired. These are two really good teams that made some changes in their philosophy, changes on defense. And I want to see how that is going to play out. How do these defenses come out? They're going to be playing against dynamic offenses. And to me, that is the question on Philadelphia and Green Bay. Who can adjust more quickly to the new system, get their defensive players going, and get that defense to catch up with their offenses?
Coach, I had an opportunity to play in 3 international games. Back then it was called the American Bowl. I played in Germany, I played in Japan, and I played in Australia. And I tell you, those trips are fun trips because you get a chance to really bond with your teammates. You get a chance to know your coaches on a different level. And just being able to travel with each other, spending that time together, it really brings the team together and it bonds them. And that's why I love just the experience of being able to go and really, too, show our game, our wonderful game to the rest of the world. And that's the beauty of not only just playing football, but being able to bring it to others in different countries.
So do you think this game could be a plus for both of these teams? They're starting the season off that way and really taking that time to bond and come together on a long trip?
Oh, absolutely. Because you think about it, the Eagles, they have a lot to prove, and it starts with Jalen Hurts and it starts with their head coach. And when you get guys, like I said, taking those long trips, spending time, having honest conversations, spending time together, breaking bread, walking through the city, foreign places, and just seeing new things, it really opens up your mind and it makes you appreciate where you're at that time in your life. And I think it's tremendous to have two teams, two young quarterbacks that are outstanding. Jordan Love is kind of like a CJ Stroud to me. I mean, just so steady, can make all the throws, really smart, humble kid when you talk to him, and a serious kid. I mean, yes, he could put a smile on his face, but very serious. He takes his craft serious, and I'm just really excited about seeing Jalen Hurts bounce back and seeing Jordan Love take that next step.
Yeah, I'm fired up about that too. I'm glad we're going to be there, and I'll get a little bonding time with you in Brazil. But let's look at the Packers' schedule and see how they are going to come through this. What do you think about this early stretch for them?
I would say I can see them starting 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see them starting 4-1, and probably the one loss I would see at Rams if I'm not showing my hand too much right now. But I like Green Bay's schedule.
Yeah, I when I look at them, to me, it's going to be the adjustment. They let their defensive coordinator Joe Barry go, so they're going to have a new defensive system. I think that offense is going to continue to grow, and they're going to put up points early in the year. Can that defense be effective in stopping a good Philadelphia offense, a good Rams offense, as you say? Now they've got the other offenses that they played. There's some question marks. The Colts. How is their quarterback going to be? Richardson, is he back and ready to go? How are the Titans going to be without Derrick Henry? Vikings have a new quarterback. So I think it's a good schedule for Green Bay to get, as you say, get off to a good start.
And Green Bay, they're a better team. They got better in the offseason. You look at them bringing in Xavier McKinley, the safety, bringing in Carlton. Jair Alexander is still there. I mean, he's an all-pro. And then you add in Edgerrin Cooper, the young linebacker that they drafted. Quay Walker, he's still a big, athletic, developing linebacker. And, of course, Kenny Clark and those guys up front. I think the Green Bay Packers, along with their new defensive coordinator, I had an opportunity to hear him speak last night, and I listened to him for about 20 minutes, and I was pumped up about him because he seems to know the strengths and weaknesses of his team. He seems to want to play aggressive. He's going to hold his guys accountable. And one thing that he said last night that really got me was how much competition. He wants competition. He wants that competition at every position. And I think competition makes you better. And when I started thinking about competition, how the heck does Kirk Cousins sit back and complain when somebody gives you $100 million? It's about competition. You want your coach to bring in the best players possible to compete against you. They gave you $100 million and you feel uncomfortable. If something were to happen to you, you don't want the level to drop too far off, coach. So
Amen.
I just don't understand why people are afraid to compete.
Competition is what it's all about. That's what makes the league great. And we're talking about Green Bay. Their competition in the NFC North is Detroit, my hometown team. And I'm excited for the Lions. It's going to be a difficult year because last year they kind of snuck up on people. Well, this year we know they're good. Everybody expects a tough game against them. They're on national TV more. Let's look at their early schedule and see what you think of that.
Wow, this is like we talked about. I love the Detroit Rams rematch. The Buccaneers are going to be tough. You got Baker Mayfield secured, so he's comfortable within his contract. The Cardinals and Seahawks, I can see them running through those teams, but West Coast trips are always the toughest. I think it's going to be definitely a challenge with the Cowboys in week 6 and then coming back, having to go on the road in back-to-back weeks against the Vikings.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think they have a chance to build some momentum early. They've got those two playoff rematches, but they're at home. So you have the Rams and the Bucks. If you can come out and take care of business at home, and boy, if you can do that, then you think, hey, we can get the Cardinals, we can get the Seahawks, we got our bye, and then we've got those two tough road games at Dallas, at Minnesota. But we can build some early momentum, and that's what they're going to need because I promise you, this year is not. They're not sneaking up on anybody this year.
No, and that's what you kind of worry and you concern yourself with to a certain degree. Will a level of complacency kick in? Will they still have that same hunger, that same desire now that, they're being chased as opposed to chasing everyone else? So it's a different mentality, and we'll see the level of maturity, but it comes down to the head man standing in front, Coach Campbell, and him echoing the message saying, hey, guys, we got to keep pushing. We got to keep pushing. We haven't accomplished anything yet.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you one question about Coach Campbell because I'm thinking like a Detroit fan now. I loved all the gambling and the let's go for it and let's do it, and that's great when you're the underdogs. But do you have to change? Do you think he needs to change his strategy some now that you've got a really good team? And a lot of these games you're going to be favored.
I don't think you change your strategy because you're favored or you're not favored, because now you're dealing with something you can't control. You're dealing with the elements and what people think. I think the biggest thing for them is him pushing them. So no level of complacency. When you're a young team and you haven't had success for a while, you start having success, people start telling you how great you are. So now you can take a deep breath and relax. No, that's when you have to, ramp it up even more and, have that level of focus and make sure that you're still trying to push and get to that next level. I think Dan Campbell's the right guy for the job. I don't think there's going to be any level of complacency. I think Aaron Glenn, he's going to improve as a defensive coordinator. I thought he did a really good job last year. And you add some new pieces on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary. I think this defense is ready to take that next step.
Well, let's go to the team that knocked the Lions out of the playoffs, the San Francisco 49ers. They had the disappointment of losing an overtime Super Bowl game. How are they going to come out of the box? And I look at their schedule, I think they've got a pretty favorable schedule to come out and do well early on. Jets at home on Monday night. That's going to be a big game. But from there, what are you thinking?
I think I believe the one game in the first 5 weeks that will give them some issues would probably be them at the Rams. I think the Rams are going to be right there. I think it's the Rams and it's San Francisco in that division at the top. I think the Patriots are going to still, they're still going to struggle a little bit with a young quarterback. The Cardinals will be better. They're not going to be great. So I think San Francisco starts off 4-1 the first 5 weeks of the season.
I agree with you, Rod. I think they have a chance to build some momentum early. And what I would like if I'm a San Francisco coach, we've got this early schedule. Then we play Seattle on a Thursday night. That gives us a little time to prepare for the Chiefs and the Cowboys, those two tough games that we're going to really need to win. But having that extra couple of days after the Seahawks game, I think that's really going to help them going into that Chiefs week.
Yeah, you talk about the first, say, 4 or 5 weeks of the season. San Francisco, they're facing a really good Jets defense. They're going to face a Brian Flores defense with the Vikings, a much improved Rams defense. We just talked about the Patriots. I know Gerard Mayo will have them in the top 10. And, the Cardinals, they've added some pieces. But the first month of the season for the San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy and that offense and everything that they have going on with that offense will be challenged because they're facing some really good, tough defenses that first month of the season.
Well, we kind of looked at some groups that had favorable early schedules. There are some teams that have some tough early schedules, and I'm going to start with the Baltimore Ravens. If I'm a Ravens executive or fan, I think I'm kind of upset right now.
Well, why are you upset?
Well, look at this, okay? We're starting off on the road at the Chiefs. Someone has to go on the road first. But then, look, we've got at the Cowboys. We come back and we've got them against the Bills, but we're at the Bengals. 3 of our first 5 on the road and going on the road to tough teams. Kansas City is a tough place to win. Dallas is a tough place to win. Bengals is a tough place to win. That's a tough start.
cares? If I'm the Baltimore Ravens, I want to go on the road to the Kansas City Chiefs and beat them just like Detroit beat them last year in the opening game. And I want to go to the Raiders. I don't mind going to the Cowboys. There's nothing about the Cowboys that scares me. And when I look at the Bills are a team in transition. You know, what is their secondary going to look like? What is their defense going to look like? What is their offense without Stephon Diggs going to look like? And at the Bengals, see, for me, I don't mind as a player going on the road early, getting some tough games, because I think it sends a message to the league. I think it sends a message throughout the locker room that, hey, this is the type of team we are. This is the type of team that we need to improve. You know, these are the things that we need to improve on. And if you can get that early in the season and you can withstand that blow, I think it really sets you up for the latter part of the season.
No, you are right about that. And if anybody can do it, these guys can. John Harbaugh is a mentally tough coach. They've got a veteran quarterback now in Lamar. They've been through the wars. And you're right. If they come through this, you know, unscathed, and they've beaten the Bengals, they've beaten the Cowboys, if they beat the Chiefs, we are all going to sit back and take notice and say, wow, this might be the team to beat in the AFC.
Absolutely, Coach. And I was going to say, if they can put that schedule back up, if you can put that schedule back up real quick. Yeah, and you think about it, there's not a team that really intimidates the Baltimore Ravens when you look at it. And you look at the Browns, the Broncos, the Bengals, the Steelers. Those are all teams they feel like they can beat. I see Week 12 at the Chargers at Monday night. That's going to be a really good football game. But the Baltimore Ravens should be set up to go at least, I would say, 12-5 maybe. I look at them as 12-5 type team.
No, they'll be there at the end, no doubt about it. Now, another team that I worry about their first games of the season is the Buffalo Bills, too. They've got 4 of their first 6 games on the road. They've got a 3-game road streak, 3 in a row, which is rare in the NFL. And they've got some of these road games on short weeks. And that's what always concerned me as a coach. Okay, we open up against the Cardinals, but then we've got to go to Miami on a Thursday. Short week. We've got to travel. We'll come back later on. We've got the Ravens, Texans, Jets on Monday night. Then the Titans, you know, I just don't. They made it tough on Buffalo early.
They made it really tough. It almost, and I hate to say this, but it almost looks a little unfair for the Buffalo Bills. You start looking at it. You look at Week 4 at the Ravens, and then you have to travel, and that's going to be a heck of a defense and a very physical battle. Then you have to come right back and play a physical game at the Texans. Then you have to come back and play the Jets on a Monday night in New York against that physical defense. That's 3 weeks in a row. That's going to be tough for Buffalo. Hopefully they can stay healthy throughout that duration.
Yeah, and as a coach, or you can't make excuses, and you got to tell your players, "Hey, we're going to get through this." But having to go to Miami on a short week, to Baltimore on a short week, play 3 games in a row on the road early on, you're going to be worn down. And when does that bye come in? They don't get their bye till Week 12. They might need a bye after Week 5 or Week 6.
But now, how important is it for the coach to gauge the players and how tired they are, and the structure of the practice, coach?
You do. You have to work through that. You got to take that travel into consideration, but you can't come across as an excuse maker, and that's the tough part of it. You can't show any type of weakness. I would probably be calling the commissioner's office now, complaining backdoor. I'm not going to complain to the media, or I'm not going to complain to anybody else, but I'd say, you know what? You guys owe us one next year.
Yeah, it sounds like those Indianapolis Colts when they used to call in and complain a lot.
Hey, one more team I want to look at with a tough start is the Jacksonville Jaguars, too. The Jags had a down year, off year last year, didn't make the playoffs. They're looking to bounce back, but look how they start. Okay, 4 teams, all playoff teams, 3 of them on the road.
And once again, the first month of the season, I'm looking at the defense, and the Dolphins did a good job of going out there and grabbing some pass rushers. We know the Browns are one of the top defenses in the league. Sean McDermott always does a great job with his defense. And DeMeco Ryans, are you kidding me? And then you still got to deal with the Colts. The Colts, they bring a lot of energy. They got some really good, young, talented players on the defensive side of the ball. Even the Bears have improved on the defensive side of the ball. We already talked about the Patriots. Yes, I feel terrible for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They will not make the playoffs this year, Coach. I'm saying it right here, right now. There's no way
You're
with this
predicting it.
schedule. This is absolutely brutal. How could the NFL do this to the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Yeah, just think if you're Trevor Lawrence, you got 3 road games early in the season. You got to go to Miami, to Buffalo, and to that Houston team with D'Amico. And your one home game is the Cleveland Browns, and you got to deal with Myles Garrett and all that pressure from the Browns defense. Wow, that's a tough assignment.
Well, the good thing for them is Jacksonville, from week 5 to week 8, they have 4 straight home games. So they have a month of home games. So it's against the Colts, the Bears,
Will they
the
be
Patriots,
recovered
and
by
the
then though? If they're 1-3 and struggling, maybe they can get it back together. But that's what I don't understand. Why would you give us 4 home games in a row and give us that tough schedule where we're traveling the first month? Balance it out a little bit.
But is that what the National Football League is about, balance, or is it about just taking on these challenges? Because think about it, Coach, when the schedule first comes out, and I don't know how you look at the schedule, but most players look at the schedule and they go and say, okay, this is a win. They put a check. This is going to be tough. This is a win. This is a win. How do you guys look at it how do you look at it when you look at the schedule?
I looked at it as a coach. Who do we play on the short weeks? Who do we have to really gear up for? How many times do we go back to back on the road? What do the other teams? Are we playing somebody who's coming off a bye when we had a Monday night game? Those are the kind of things I look at. And when I look at 3 games in a row on the road, I know that's going to be tough. Doesn't matter who you play.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Well, talking about schedules, let's jump and talk about quarterbacks. This was a great quarterback draft. We've got a few guys who are slated to start for their teams. And let's look at Caleb Williams and some of his compatriots and the first month and a half that they have. Who do you like here? Who do you think has a chance to get off to a good start, and who could be tough here?
I would say Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. I believe those are the two. That's really the class of this quarterback class. And Caleb, he's got some good players around him. Having Keenan Allen is a true pro, and being able to learn from him. DJ Moore is an explosive player. Cole Kmet is a really underrated tight end. They can run the football. They're continuing to build this offensive line. And I like Caleb Williams. People talk about his personality. I like the fact that he's not shy and he's not shying away from all the attention. I like the fact that he's embracing. I'm from the Chicagoland area. It's a big city. They have high expectations. And I think Caleb Williams, he's gonna struggle doing all this acrobatic stuff at times. But when he settles in, he's going to make a lot of amazing plays. Jaden Daniels, I think he's going to be very solid. Drake May, I think he's going to struggle. You heard Gerard Mayo talk about that head coach, about he needs a lot of work. And J.J. McCarthy, because he's a system quarterback, I think Kevin O'Connell is going to do a very solid job with him down in Minnesota.
Yeah, those 4 guys probably have a very good chance to be the starters opening day. Caleb Williams, I look at that schedule, and you've got a chance to have some success there. You've got 3 home games out of your first 5. Your road games, Houston's going to be a tough one. Indy wasn't a playoff team last year. They don't have a dominant defense. So you got a chance to build some momentum there. But I look at your old team and Drake May, and if he lines up at the starting quarterback week 1, look at that, what he has to deal with. Go on the road to Cincinnati and Lou Anarumo and face that defense first. Then come back. Okay, got a home game, Seattle, see how that goes. But then you go to the Jets, who can get after you on defense. Then you go to San Francisco, who definitely can get after you on defense. And then come back, kind of a must-win game against a division opponent, Miami. Those first 5 weeks could be very tough on that young man.
Yeah, he could be. They could be looking at a 1-4 start if he doesn't play well. You still have Jacoby Brissett. You have a veteran behind him. But yeah, that'd be really interesting to see what happens this.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because if I'm looking at this schedule coming out and I've got a young quarterback, I'm kind of thinking now maybe I don't start Drake May early on. Maybe I go with Jacoby and try to get through that gauntlet and let Drake learn. I know May is coming in there. Hey, it's my team. I want to be the leader. But Patrick Mahomes didn't play his first 6 weeks, 8 weeks in the league, and he did pretty well. So I think with that schedule, I think about maybe holding off on Drake May early.
Yeah, they talked about Anthony Richardson, how much he benefited from actually getting hurt and being able to sit back and watch everything from the outside for Indianapolis. And that's what happens when you're a young quarterback. Instead of being thrown into the fire and really ruining your confidence, now you sit on the sideline, you see how things operate, you get a chance to see the speed of the game, and just see what the different defensive coordinators are trying to do to you.
Well, I'm going to ask you about another team I have a heart for, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have a new quarterback who's not a rookie, but they've got a new quarterback in Russell Wilson, new offensive system. Tell me what you think about their schedule and what you expect to see from Wilson early on.
I love what Mike Tomlin and what the staff in Pittsburgh has done. Really beefing up the interior of that offensive line. Broderick Jones, he was the first-round draft choice last year. He was outstanding form and continuing to get back to just being tough and physical up front, playing in that AFC North. You look at the Chargers, that's going to be a tough one. At the Broncos and at the Falcons, I do believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers can go on the road and beat both those teams. I think the Colts are going to be tough for them. Cowboys, we're going to have them on Peacock. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have a tough schedule. I can see them going, when I'm looking at this schedule, 9-8 and possibly making the playoffs, Coach.
I think Russell is going to help them. I think the change in offensive coordinators is going to help. I look for them to have a really good year. As you said, it's a tough division, though. You're in with Baltimore and Cincinnati and Cleveland, and you've got this changeover that you got to deal with. But Coach Tomlin always has those guys ready to roll, especially in the second half of the year. So I look for them to be right in the hunt coming down the stretch.
And some improvements at the linebacker position, and guys healthy, and getting Minka Fitzpatrick back. Cameron Hayward, he's going to come back fresh, even though he's an older player, still very productive. Najee Harris, they got to get more production out of Najee Harris, and that's why I'm a big fan of starting Jaylen Warren. I think he should be the starter. I think he's the best back that they have. But overall, we haven't even talked about their defense and the impact their defense makes. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I like them getting back to their roots, being physical in the interior of that defense. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see that physical play coming for sure. One other team, we've talked about this a little bit. Opening night for us, we've got Philadelphia, and they've got a new defensive system too. Vic Fangio is there. What do you think about the Philadelphia defense and how it's going to come out, especially in the opening part of the season?
Well, I'm excited about Fangio being their defensive coordinator. He's an old school guy. He was with the Dolphins last year, and he had them playing extremely well until they, got ravaged by a bunch of injuries. But I do believe that he's going to get those big boys from University of Georgia up front working, doing their thing. I love they went out and paid close attention to their secondary, getting DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. Guys that are going to make an immediate impact in that secondary. And I see the Philadelphia Eagles bouncing back offensively, run the football, stop having Jalen Hurts take 5 to 7 step drops, get the ball out of his hand quickly, run the RPO, and run downhill. You got Saquon Barkley. It's going to come down to Jalen Hurts and that defense. And I like Vic Fangio leading that defense.
And I'm with you all the way. Philadelphia has to get back to their roots. We saw them in their Super Bowl year. They were very physical. Nobody could stand up to that offensive line. They set the tone in every game they played, running the football. Their defense was physical. And then at the tail end of last year, we didn't see that. I was at their playoff game against the Bucs, and it was the most kind of passive thing I've ever seen in a playoff game. And they've got to get back to, here's who we are. We're tougher than you are, and we're going to prove that to you. I think Coach Fangio is going to do a lot in getting that mentality back. The offensive side of the ball has to do the same thing. Let's get back to who we are.
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. I think you hit it spot on. Like finding your identity. I think Fangio will give them identity on the defensive side of the ball. I think it'll be a little tougher to try to find that identity on the offensive side of the ball. And they are drenched with talent. The wide receivers. They got a really good tight end in Dallas Goedert. They now have Saquon Barkley. And can those leftover offensive linemen? Can those guys pick up the slack?
Yeah.
Because when you start losing offensive linemen, Kelsey is a future Hall of Famer, it's hard to replace those guys.
Yeah, they just have to get that mentality back, and this is who we are. And I think they're going to do it. I think they learned from not having that at the tail end of last year, and I believe they'll get it back. Well, I want to
I
finish with
agree.
one team that I know you're high on, and they showed me a lot last year, and that's the Houston Texans. What are you expecting from the Texans this year?
I expect them to continue to improve. I think Nick Caserio, the general manager, has done a wonderful job of getting talent in there. D'Amico Ryans developing that talent, developing a culture, establishing a culture, and just adding to the list of players. I mean, in the secondary, Jalen Petrie, young, athletic, gifted safety, Stingley. I like him a lot. Christian Harris, he runs from sideline to sideline. You bring in Daniil Hunter. I think this is a team. If they end up in the AFC Championship against the Kansas City Chiefs, I will not be surprised, Coach. I think this
Mm,
team is an
mm.
outstanding team. I think D'Amico Ryans will continue to push them. They're going to go through some struggles because they're a young team trying to figure it out. But I think overall, man, the big picture, how can you not be excited about the Houston Texans? I want to see them more. I want to see them 4, 5, 6 times this year on national television, Coach.
You're right, and I think we can't give enough credit to D'Amico Ryans and C.J. Stroud for what they brought. This was a losing organization, a team that had a losing history, and they turned it around. They turned it around with the mentality of, "Hey, we're going to work hard. We're going to be together. We're going to be unified, and we're going to win." And they brought that to the Houston area, and I love it. And I'm with you. We need to see them more.
Yeah, CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams, week 2. What are your thoughts on that, Coach?
That will be very, very interesting. And um, Caleb Williams, he can look at CJ Stroud and say, "This is what this guy did. He brought this to the table. He turned this organization around. I've got the same challenges in Chicago. And can I do the same thing? Just be positive, be who I am, be relaxed, and do my job and make my teammates better." And that's going to be a very, very interesting game. Two bright young stars at the quarterback position.
And Coach, two totally different players. CJ Stroud, he's more of a pocket guy. You look at him, and if he was 6'4", 6'5", you could say, hey, he's a version of Tom Brady. He's smart. He gets rid of the ball quickly. He's very accurate. Whereas Caleb, he's going to give you a little bit more of that Patrick Mahomes, going to look one way, throw across his body. And some of that stuff will work and we'll get our oohs and ahs, but a lot of it won't work because this is National Football League and the speed is just different. And you're dealing with defensive coordinators and guys that have mortgages to pay. So it's just going to be different, but it should be a very exciting game. And these two guys, we're going to see the next 10 to 15 years.
I agree with you. And you and I kind of lived through the uh, Brady Manning era. We could very well be seeing the Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud era come on and see these guys battling for a long time. But
Absolutely, man. We're just so fortunate. We're so
it
fortunate to
wouldn't be
see
an
these.
NFL. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it wouldn't be an NFL podcast if we didn't at least touch on the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody wants to know about Dallas. What do you think about them and where they are?
I tell you this, I like Zeke Elliott, but it showed me a lot when they even thought about bringing him back. When you let a guy like that go, you have to move forward. And I think about Dak Prescott, and I'm a big fan of Dak Prescott. I think he's a good person, but he's got to be able to take that next step. And 50, 60 million. I don't know, man. I mean, if I'm the Cowboys, maybe I'll wait this year, let him play out this year and see what happens. And maybe I go to Trey Lance. But I got some doubts about Dak. I really never had a lot of doubts about Dak. I've been a big believer in him, and now it's just like I'm not sure with Dak anymore, Coach.
Well, I would like to ask you, what do you think they feel Zeke Elliott gives them? What does he bring to the table that they needed? That was my question.
Pass protection. He's great at pass protection. Okay. But you get him out open one-on-one against a safety. When the last time did he make a safety miss or a corner or a linebacker miss in open space? He hasn't. And that's the thing that you don't get from him. You don't get that explosiveness. Jerry Jones knows that Zeke is a fan favorite and he's a crowd favorite. But at the end of the day, you can't play that. You got to move forward. You got to bring in some young guys that got some speed, some athleticism, guys that are hungry. He's rich. He's comfortable. He's not going to come in and do the little things. And why even bring him back? I don't get it, man. I think you're trying to move forward, but yet you're steady moving back. I don't get it.
He brings physical toughness, and maybe they felt like they needed that. But I like their offense, the explosiveness of Tony Pollard and what they did with the receivers. So it just was a question mark in my mind. I'd like to flash back to their schedule, though, for a second, because as we watched them last year, we saw a different team at home than they were on the road. And at home, they were fast, they were flying around, they created turnovers. Their struggle was on the road. And now you look at coming out of the gate in the first half of the season, at Cleveland against a very, very strong defense. At the Giants, tough game, division game. At Pittsburgh, who we say is going to be different. They're going to be more physical. At the 49ers, where they struggled last year. And then at the Falcons. How are they going to fare in these road games when the offensive passing game might not be high flying?
That's the thing, and I think that's the thing that I'm talking about. When you talk about the Dallas Cowboys and then bringing Zeke in, I would have drafted a guy in the 4th, 5th, 6th round to be able to come in and just run the football. And it just comes down to Dak Prescott, man. I'm just so tired of the excuses with the Dallas Cowboys. They got to get tougher on the defensive side of the ball. You look on defense. Why didn't they go out and get a big run stopping defensive tackle? 6'4", 320 pounds. That's something they've struggled with, is stopping the run. Some of these moves, I know they do a great job of building an offensive line, but to win a championship, you got to have a great defensive line. You had a great defensive line. You had great linebackers. You had some really smart guys in the secondary, and you were able to win a championship. And it wasn't just because of your offense and Peyton Manning. It was your defense.
Yeah. Well, sounds like you still have some questions on the Cowboys. A lot of these questions are going to get answered, and the schedule is so exciting. We've got a great lineup of games on Sunday Night Football, and I am excited for the year. Can't wait for it to start, Rod.
I can't wait either, Coach. I can't wait to kick your butts in the pits, too.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.